If we haven't met yet, my name is Ana Lopez. I'm a sexologist, sex coach, and smut consultant. I'm the owner of Sex and Spanglish, as well as the hostess of this podcast that also goes by the same name, Sex and Spanglish. Sexologist Me is currently completing a dissertation on what it means to be a Latina and a sexual being at the same time. And in the near future, I'm going to be interviewing states-based Latinas about their sexual experiences through the eyes of a Latina. So stay tuned for any updates on that. If you're looking for a Latina sex coach, you can work with me one of three ways. The first is La Sinvergüenza Symposium, which is my 12-month group coaching program uniquely made for Latinas. Second, Textual Healing, which is my one-on-one coaching program done completely via app-based messaging. And then there's Operation Orgasm, which is my online independent study course that teaches you everything that you need to know about having mind-blowing sex on demand, even if your partner doesn't know what the hell they're doing. All of the program information to any of these programs and their respective links are located in the show notes of this episode. If you write sex scenes, we need to talk, as I'm currently accepting consulting clients. I work with readers to avoid getting canceled and to stop perpetuating sex negative narratives. Authors, talking to you, y'all have the best intentions, and some of you are still perpetuating sex negative narratives, and I want to help you stop that. So you can download a free copy of How to Write Sex Positive Sex Scenes Without Boring Your Readers using the link in the show notes of this episode. My vision for my business and the work that I do in the world as a sexologist, sex coach, and smut consultant is to pave the way for the Latina woman to live a life sin vergüenza by embracing their individual sexuality and their Latinidad at the same damn time. My mission with Sex and Spanglish is to provide culturally relevant sex ed that centers the individual and their personal desires and values while shifting the sex negative narratives that pose as a barrier to true guilt-free pleasure. There are only three things that you need in order to have mind-blowing sex on demand: an understanding of your body, the ability to effectively communicate that, and the skills of rest and rejuvenation. In last week's episode, I took a deep dive into the skill of rest, what it is, and how you can begin resting. In the episode before that, so 2 weeks ago, I took a deep dive into the definitions of rest and rejuvenation, like what they are, how I define them, how I apply them to this work of learning how to have mind-blowing sex on demand. And I also talked about why they're so important. Because when I tell my clients that they need to learn to build the skills of rest and rejuvenation in order to have mind-blowing sex on demand, they look at me like I have two heads. So I wanted to share why that is so important. So if you haven't listened to last week's episode or 2 weeks ago, definitely go back and listen to those episodes. And if you haven't listened to the 2 episodes on understanding your body and the 3 episodes on effective communication, definitely go back and listen to those episodes as well. They lay the foundation for you to have mind-blowing sex on demand, so go back and listen to those. And again, you don't need to listen to those episodes in any specific order, so feel free to finish listening to this episode and then go back and listen to the other episodes. So in today's podcast, I'm going to be taking a deep dive into rejuvenation. I'm going to remind you what it is, how I'm defining it, and how you can begin to rejuvenate, right? Build the skill of rejuvenation. So rejuvenation, by the dictionary's definition, is the action or process of giving new energy or vigor to something. Now, when I read that, a word comes to mind, and that word is refreshing. I think of a cold glass of water on a hot day or a warm cup of coffee on a cool morning. I think of getting under a warm blanket when it's really cold outside, right? I think of taking a shower at the end of a long day, right? Or even in the morning, right? After getting up, that's what I think of. I think of refreshing. I also think of adding so those are almost nice to haves, right? But I also think of things that are necessary. So when I'm starving or just hungry, right? And I eat a meal, that also feels kind of refreshing, right? When I go to sleep at the end of the day, right? When I take a nap or when I drink water because I'm thirsty, right? Not just because it's hot, but because I'm thirsty. Like, I think of that as rejuvenation as well. And in the first episode in this series, the rest and rejuvenation series that I did, I talked about this car analogy where rest, for if we imagine our bodies as cars, the rest is really just like a parked car. It's turned off, it's not doing anything, it's not using any energy, it's just chilling. And when you think of rejuvenation, it's fueling the car, right? So it's putting in things that are needed for it to keep going. So it's like topping off the fluids, it's adding in gas to the car, it's changing the oil, right? It's really like those maintenance things that you need for the longevity of the car and to get it to keep going. And in the same way, rejuvenation, that's what rejuvenation is for our bodies, right? So it's like drinking water, that is necessary. Eating food of some kind. I don't give a fuck what you eat. I mean, I do give a fuck what you eat, but also like fed is best, right? So like eat what you eat what you have, right? Eating food, sleeping, right? All of those things are important. And I will say, for the purposes of this episode, for the purposes of how I am using this, how I'm defining rejuvenation, I'm also going to include hygiene. Now, we can go into this whole thing about how hygiene is like mandatory because of illnesses, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, point is, I'm adding that in there. So eating, sleeping, drinking water, and hygiene, all necessary. Okay, so when we think of rest and rejuvenation, most of us are resting very minimally. And if you need to learn to rest, which most of you do, go back and listen to last week's episode, but we're rejuvenating even less, which is like crazy to think about. We're sleeping like 5 to 6 hours a night, if that. And then to top it off, we're telling ourselves that it's enough. It's not. It's not. I'm just going to leave it there. It's not. You could lie to yourself all you want. 5 to 6 hours is not enough, period. You are drinking water, but only when it's in your coffee, and like your third cup of coffee, by the way. You are eating, but you're only eating standing up, and it's as fast as possible, and it's usually not a meal. You're just like snacking throughout the day. You're grazing like a cow, right? And I don't mean cow as in like body shape or anything like that. I mean like you are literally just snacking all day, like you're grazing like a cow or like a fucking toddler, right? Like there's no actual meal, and that needs to stop. But I digress. So that is most likely your current state. And rejuvenation all starts by not taking on more than you can handle at any given moment. I'm going to say that again. Rejuvenation all starts by not taking on more than you can handle at any given moment. And in order for you to know what you can handle at any given moment, you need to know where you are, energetically speaking, at any given moment. So I'm going to tell you how to do that now. So in my online course, Operation Orgasm, where I teach you everything that you need to know about having mind-blowing sex on demand, no matter how bad your partner is in the bedroom. By the way, this course is only $69 for lifetime access, and that includes any updates that I do to the course in the future. It's a steal. If I do say so myself. I will leave the information for that course in the show notes. But anyway, I digress. In Operation Orgasm, I share what is called the Rejuvenation Radar. And it is an image that I share with my clients, but I'm going to explain it to you. So if you are in a place where you can close your eyes, I definitely recommend you do so. If you are like out in public, you're like at the store, walking around, or you're driving, please keep your eyes open. But I just want you to envision this, right? So I want you to think about a gas gauge, right? So on this particular gas gauge, there is an E on the left side for empty. In the middle, there is a half. Wait, it says one half for half a tank. And then on the right-hand side, there's an F for full. And then there's labels for each of those. So under the E for empty, it says my energy level can't go any lower. I need to refuel. And in the middle for the half a tank, it says I've used half of my energy. I can maintain this level for 4 to 5 more hours and will need to replenish after. And then at full, or F, it says my energy level can't go any higher. Now, this image, this rejuvenation radar, is what I give to my clients to begin having them checking in with themselves throughout the day to see where they are at energetically at any given moment. A vast majority of you do not even know where you are at energetically. And then you're kind of just grasping for things to try to solve like what you imagine you should be feeling. And you're taking on more when you can't. And then you're not doing more when you actually can. And then it leads to you like being behind either at home, like with the household labor or work, or, you're not rejuvenating enough, so you're not feeling well rested, you're not feeling hydrated, you're starving all the time, right? You're getting headaches because you're not eating enough nutrients, like all of these things. Your libido is low, by the way, right? Like, and again, I'm going to do a whole episode on libido. But it is because the vast majority of you do not know where you are starting from. You don't know your energy levels. For those of you that don't know, I love me a Facebook group. Like, I love to watch people interact, sometimes argue. I love like the gossip that I am not involved in, right? Like, I love me a Facebook group. And it is so, so common for women in any group. I am in tons of different types of groups. And it is so common for women to say, hey, I have this thing going on. Give me your bet. Like, what do I need to eat in order to lose weight? What do I need to eat to gain weight? What do I need? What vitamins and supplements do you take, right? But not actually, like, they're asking for advice of any kind, right? It's not even just necessarily like, quote unquote, like health related or like weight related, whatever. It's really just like asking for advice. So like, what supplements, what books do I need? Like essentially the question is, what do I need? And then like insert whatever here, right? So like books, vitamins, supplements, vegetables, remedios, right? Like all of these things, like what do I need? And they never state, never have I once seen this, they never state where exactly they are. They're not like, hey, my doctor said that I'm low on iron. What are some remedios that I can use in addition to iron supplements in order to like resolve that issue, right? It's never that. It's never them knowing actually where they're at. They're just looking for a solution, but not actually knowing like the actual problem, which is fascinating to me. So with this rejuvenation radar, you are going to begin checking in with yourself where you're at any given moment so that you can actually determine the appropriate solution, right? Because sometimes you're going to need to rejuvenate with a nap. Sometimes you're going to need to rejuvenate with a glass of water. Sometimes you're going to need to rejuvenate with a shower or a meal, right? Sometimes it might be a snack, just depends, right? But it all starts by you knowing where you're at any given time. So I want you to think about your energy level as a gas tank. And I want you to begin checking in with yourself. Where are you at any given time? And then ask yourself, what is it that I actually need? What do I need? Because some of y'all just be grasping just to grasp, right? You're just like, give me anything, give it all to me. Give me the vitamins, the supplements, give me the medications, the remedios, give me like all, gimme. And you're not even giving one, you don't do all of those things, and two, or use all of them, whatever. And you don't even give it time to work. Like, let's try one thing at a time. And let's actually get clear on what is it that you actually need in the first place. So again, you're going to start by gauging where you are energetically and then checking with yourself. What do I need? Do I need, for the purposes of this definition, this beginner rejuvenation process, do I need sleep? Do I need water? Do I need food of some kind? I will also say maybe it's like a specific type of food, right? Like maybe you're noticing you need like fiber, or um, I'm trying to think of a different example because I'm thinking of like constipation purposes. Like maybe you need fiber. So like maybe you eat a vegetable, right? Right. Or beans or something like that. Right. So that could be it. Maybe if you're like blood sugar, you're noticing your blood sugar is low. If that's something that you struggle with, like that maybe will influence that, you need to eat. Right. So being clear on, is it like, am I hungry, or is it that I need a specific, thing, right? Do I need fiber? Do I need sugar, right? Because I feel like my sugars are off or something like that. Or do I need some type of hygiene, right? Do I need to wash my hair? Do I need another shower, right? I already showered this morning, but maybe I need another shower, right? So really checking in with yourself. Do I need sleep? Do I need water? Do I need to eat? Do I need a specific type of food? Or do I need some type of hygiene practice? And checking in with yourself and seeing what that is, and then giving that to yourself. And that's it for the rejuvenation, right? Okay. I really want to go, so that's like the basics of it, right? And I want to share that with rest, and again, if you go back and listen to last week's episode, I took it to the extreme, right? The first step in learning to rest is really just going to the extreme. But with rejuvenation, we're actually starting at the bare minimum. And it's kind of weird, right? It's weird in the sense that like the two are so contrasted, but there's specific reasons for that. So I really like to start with the basics of rejuvenation because a vast majority of us are missing all of those bare minimums in order to like survive in longevity purposes, right? We can do all of these other like self-care and like all of this other, fun things, but like let's start off with the basics. Like you want to be chronically not hydrated, but then like be going to the spa every month. Like that doesn't fucking make any sense. Like let's start with the bare minimum, right? So again, sleep, eating, drinking water, specific type of foods if that is necessary, and hygiene. So for my clients that are in Operation Orgasm, I take them through an activity called the Rejuvenation Recipe. And what this is it allows them to create their unique rejuvenation recipe. So what that means is that they are beginning to understand what specific activities really rejuvenate them outside of their basic needs, but including, right, their basic needs as well, right? For some people, like a long shower is going to be really rejuvenating. And for some people, they're like, I just need to get it done. And like, that's it, right? And so it really helps to create nuance for you when you are in need of some rejuvenation. And I don't think I said this before, so I'll say it here, is that sometimes you're going to need a glass of water. Sometimes you're going to need a nap. Sometimes you're going to need a specific type of food, right? And so it's really about playing with this and figuring out at what point do I need these specific things. So again, I'm going to leave the information for Operation Orgasm if you want to sign up in the show notes. But I'm going to very quickly take you through this activity. It's really short. It's going to take you more time to do it than it is for me to share the directions for this. I'm going to say this here and I'm going to say it again at the end, that there is, for the activity, you can actually use absolutely anything that you want for your rejuvenation recipe. That said, for the purposes of this activity, for the first time that you do it, I want you to stick to these 5 categories. So the sleep, eat, drink, and hygiene. I want you to get really nuanced with those. I guess those are 4 categories: eat, sleep, drink, and hygiene. I want you to get really nuanced with those categories so that you are still sticking to the basics. Because remember, the first step is the basics. Okay? All right. So the directions say, imagine that you are left without running water for an entire month. This means you aren't able to shower, brush your teeth, or wash your hands or your hair. The next month, your water is turned back on. That first shower, that first teeth brushing, the first hair and hand wash are going to be so long and so luxurious. You're going to feel amazing afterwards, refreshed, rejuvenated. This is the feeling that you are going for when I talk about rejuvenation on a daily basis. Yes, on a daily basis. Y'all need to be refueling, rejuvenating yourself on a daily basis. And as you can see on the Rejuvenation Radar, and for those of you that are not in Operation Orgasm, as you can imagine on the Rejuvenation Radar, remember that gas gauge, that's the Rejuvenation Radar, our energy depletes in the same way that a gas tank does, right? With each task and passing hour, it goes down little by little. And in order to replenish that energy, to get back to full, we need to rejuvenate. In other words, the way we fuel our tank is to rejuvenate, right? So the way that we move from half a tank or empty or a quarter tank, whatever it is, the way we get back to full, the way that we fuel our tank is by doing these rejuvenating activities. So the drinking water, the sleeping, the hygiene, the eating. So your activity is this. Think of at least one activity that you do or have done that leaves you feeling rejuvenated. And again, for the purposes of this activity, if you are not in Operation Orgasm and you are just listening to this episode, one, you need to come and join Operation Orgasm. Like, what are you doing? Also, again, information in the show notes. But also, we're sticking to those 4 categories of eating, drinking water, sleeping, and hygiene, and using a nuance. Like, how can you, this is going to sound weird, but like, how can you, it's not like how can you shower, but like, here's the thing is I don't want to give y'all examples because I want you to come up with it on your own, which is why I'm struggling. But like, in what way can you alter your hygiene in order to become even more rejuvenated, right? So maybe there's like levels to this shit, right? Of like, okay, there's like a quick shower, there's an everything shower, there's another type of shower, right? Those kind of things. Or maybe you use different products or something like that. Or like with food, right? Like sometimes you want to like, my boyfriend calls us like, he's feeling nasty or he's feeling gross. And so that means that he wants to go and eat like Taco Bell. And then like we want to go and get ice cream afterwards or something like that. Or there would be other days where he's just like, oh, I'm hungry. And like, we'll just eat a normal meal, right? That is like normal for us. And so thinking about like what different types of meals fuel you in different ways, right? Because they're all fuel at the end of the day, but they may fuel you in different ways. And then in terms of water, maybe there's like different amounts of waters, different ways that you drink water, right? Thinking of all of those things. And then in terms of sleep, the same way, like the amount of hours, the way that you get ready for bed, like all of those things, I want you to get really nuanced, but only with those 4 categories. So you're going to think of at least one activity right now that you do or have done that leaves you feeling rejuvenated in terms of eating, drinking water, sleeping, and hygiene. And then once you've gotten that down, presumably you already have, I want you to list 9 more. 9 more. And I would say at least, so there's 4 categories. So list 2 for each category, and then the third category, or the third one you can put in any category. You get to decide. But I really want you to stretch your brain here. And whenever you are checking in with yourself throughout the day, because you should be doing this throughout the day, checking in with that rejuvenation radar, checking in with that gas tank, when you are below a half a tank and you need to rejuvenate, you want to ask yourself, what one of these activities can I do? And actually, not even what one of these activities can I do? It's like, what activity do I need right now? Checking in with yourself of what do you need in that moment? Because you can just say like, oh, I'm at a half a tank, I'm just going to drink a glass of water. Well, maybe you need a nap. So that's not really helpful, right? And like, it's not that it's doing you a disservice to drink a glass of water, but if you're, drinking a glass of water when you really need a nap, like that's not really solving the problem. Do you see what I'm saying? Or like if you're hungry, and this is super common. Actually, I hear people do this all the time, but like, they're like, oh, you're hungry, drink a glass of water. And like, sure, that might help you for a little bit, right? It might like help you postpone the hunger for a little bit. But in all actuality, like, you need to eat at some point. You can't just live on a liquid diet. Like, that's not feasible. And so you really need to be checking in, not only where are you on that rejuvenation radar, on that gas gauge, but like, what is it that you like, what type of fuel do you need? Okay. And if I know this is a lot of information, right? And this is just rejuvenation. This isn't rest, right? This is just rejuvenation. This is a whole process. So if you were like, I don't want to do this on my own, I totally get it. I get it. So first, I want to invite you to join Operation Orgasm. Again, it's $69 for lifetime access in addition to any updates that I ever make to the course from here on out. That is available using the link in the show notes that you could just directly purchase and begin today, or right this moment, whatever. And if you want to walk through that, if you want help with that, all of my one-on-one clients also get access to Operation Orgasm. So go ahead and book a quickie call to begin working with me. The quickie call is your first step in working with me. It is a one-on-one call where we talk about what's going on. So if you're like, hey, like there's a short little application to tell me what's going on. And if you're like, hey, like in that application, if you just want to say like, I heard the rejuvenation episode and I fucking need help, like you could put that, or whatever it is that you are specifically struggling with. We can talk about that. So feel free to book your call and like, let's get started. And I want to state that there is no pressure to purchase from me by booking a quickie call. It is vital that you get on the call. And I know that sounds weird, but like it really is, because I don't even want to say a lot of times. What do I want to say about this? Is that people book a quickie call with me, right? And a lot of people book a quickie call because they want to work with me in some capacity. And they're like, hey, like this is the first step in working with you. Like, let's work together. But excuse me, there are also other people that book with me, like book a quickie call with me because they're not sure where to go next. They're like, I have this problem. I don't even know if you can help me. I've never heard you talk about this specific thing, like all of that. And they're like, I just didn't know what to do. And I thought that maybe you could help me, or maybe you could point me in the right direction. And that is okay too. There are a handful of people that I have, probably more than a handful, that I have sent to other people, whether it just be in general, because that's what they needed, right? So it was another professional or something like that, or they just, needed that step first. So maybe they needed therapy first. Maybe they needed a medical professional first, and then they came back to me. Or maybe they worked with me in conjunction with their doctor, right? Like there's so many ways that this could turn out, but the only way that you're going to know is by booking that quickie call. And again, there is no pressure to buy. I'm not going to be mad at you if you like book the call and then you decide you don't want to work with me for whatever reason, or it's just not the next best step. Like, you're not wasting my time. And actually you're saving yourself time by getting clear, and also saving your libido. But I'm going to talk about that in another episode. But you're saving your time and saving your libido and actually getting your results faster by booking a quickie call and having the quickie call, even if now is not the best time to work with me. So go ahead and book your quickie call. The link is in the show notes, and I will talk to y'all next week. If you have made it this far, this means that you have listened to the entire episode, assuming that you didn't skip any parts. So first and foremost, I want to thank you. It is truly an honor and a privilege to get to share my knowledge and expertise every single week, and the fact that people listen is mind-blowing to this day. So thank you. And before you go, I have a quick favor to ask of you. If you have gained anything from this podcast at all, if you learned one thing, if you've subscribed to the podcast, if you plan on coming back next week, if you have applied anything that I've taught you and it has brought you amazing results or even good results, right? Like if you've gotten results from what I've shared by applying what I've shared here in the podcast, I want to ask you to rate this podcast. I'm currently in the process of sharing the impact that this podcast has on the listeners, on the audience, on you all. And that means that I need to hear from you all. I know that people are listening because I see the subscriber number go up each and every week. I see the amount of time being listened to each episode. I see that go up every single week. So I know y'all are listening to entire episodes. I know y'all are listening to these episodes multiple times. I know people are subscribing. So the analytics say so, but I want to hear from you all. So if you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review. So, give it a star rating and share 1 to 2 sentences about something that you've learned from the podcast, what you think listeners need to know. If you are on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment letting me know the impact that this episode has had on you. If you are listening on Spotify or some other platform, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram at Sex and Spanglish. You can also send me an email, anna@sexandspanglish.com, and let me know what is resonating for you. What did you take from this podcast and apply to your own life where you've gotten results? Tell me what you like. Also, tell me what you don't like and provide me with suggestions for topics and questions that you might have. I also want to remind you that I do have an anonymous question box. So feel free to go to the show notes and submit your questions there, and I may share them on the podcast anonymously. Of course, all of that is in the show notes. But again, thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. And if there has been anything that you've learned from this episode, please, please, please do me the favor and let me know, whether it be through Apple review, whether it be through DM, whether it be on your stories and sharing like a little snippet and tagging me in it, whether it be a comment on YouTube. I just ask that you share what your thoughts are on this podcast. I'll talk to you next week.